Our last discussion item this evening is a continued conversation on the public safety complex proposal. In our packet, we have a memo from our town planner, Dave Sharples, who's here this evening, along with Police Chief Poulin, Deputy Chief McCain, and Wilking, and I believe a consultant from Thank you.
LaValle Brenzinger Architects, or LBA.
I was going to
That's
try, but
Bob Robacek.
thank you. Mr. Sharples, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. So just to bring you up to speed a little bit, in concert with the Select Board, the Facilities Advisory Committee, town staff, LaValle Brenzinger Architects, MRI, and their subconsultants, we reviewed a host of options combinations to site a new police station and or new fire station with or without a substation. And, we looked at locating it at the existing site at 20 Court Street. We looked at our town-owned property on Holland Way. We looked at 3032 Court Street, and we looked at 6 Continental Drive, which is a town-owned parcel that the town purchased maybe about 12, 15 years ago or so for this purpose of public safety use. And through these discussions with the Select Board, Facilities Advisory Committee, town staff, we did develop conceptual plans for a new police station and fire substation at the town-owned land at 6 Continental. If you remember, I came before this board and we discussed with or without a fire station, and it was decided to move forward with plans and estimates for a new PD and with a fire substation, and that's part of what will be presented tonight. So now that we've kind of identified a path forward for 6 Continental that includes the PD and the fire substation, it's what to do with 20 Court Street. And what we looked at a couple of different options. One was raise the site and build new construction, or renovate the existing site. And as Bob from LBA will get into further detail, the renovation, we tasked them with a renovation saying, what can you do for $4 million or less? But then maybe add alternates, like what are other things that could be done? What would you do priority for that number? And then what could you do with additional? So it's almost like a menu. He will present that. He has informed me that the town can reasonably expect to get 40 plus years out of new construction, and a renovation you could reasonably expect 15 to 20 years. Also, before I pass it on to him, we did task him with a couple of things. The estimates that you have are $2022. That's the Facilities Advisory Committee wanted that. I think that's prudent too, as well, to keep it in today's dollars. But we also knew that these projects aren't going to be bought out for a while. Even if for some reason they got on the March warrant, they would, they have to be final designed and put out to bid and contracted. So the buyout is probably 2024 at some point. So we asked them to, in addition to in the estimates, you'll see that they also added an escalator of what they felt that cost could be at buyout. And another important component, and I believe maybe I know why the two ladies are here, is I asked them to cost out. This is the estimates were based on mid-level construction, not cheap, not, Yeah, he'll cover that in more detail, but I said, what would you add for net zero approach? Kind of an approach for, no carbon emissions building and very energy efficient, and he'll go over that as well. There's some percentages that he gave if we want to get, but I will add, reason I brought that up is been working with Kristen Murphy. Actually today some new guidance came out for some potential funding for that. We don't know all the details yet, but we're looking into it, and I believe there's opportunities with the Inflation Reduction Act that could be utilized to offset some of those costs if we were to make, energy improvements to the new construction.
Great.
So with that, I'll pass it off to Bob Robacek. Oh yeah, I don't know. What do I do both? I might have to.
Well, I can see Julie. On my screen. So
Just a pointer.
if she raises her hand for.
Want me to share my screen?
We do not. Nope. Almost like
Only Mr. Dean does that.
Is this
Yeah, so it's a digital one, so it's still, it works just like a laser pointer, but it shows up on the computer. Yeah, you're just holding it.
Cold?
Yeah, something.
I finally dried off. I was totally wet when I came in the building.
Is it still raining outside? It was pouring.
It is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you.
So I should be able to go full screen.
It's been hot all summer, and tonight I'm freezing.
There you go, full screen mode. All right, we're in business. Let's see if this works. Yeah, it works.
I think
Awesome.
the arrow should flip between
Oh,
the two slides.
Oh, it does?
Thank you for that, too.
You want to hang out for 1 second while I go to the first one? All right, good to go? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. My name is Bob Robichek. I'm the Civic Studio Leader for LaValle Brensinger and the Public Safety Planner, Lead Planner, Designer. It's 10 months worth of work, so I'm going to keep it kind of high level if it's okay with you. We've been working, really, can't believe it's been 10 months. We interviewed for the project in this room, actually. I was pretty much standing where I am now, I think, David. And so David gave a good synopsis of where we've been. It's been a journey. You know, we did an assessment of the existing building. I believe you all have that report. It was finished, I believe, in November, December of last year. And then we started looking at the multiple sites, and I'm not going to get into them because the ones that didn't make it to the finish line, but we looked at a lot of different things, working with both the chiefs and their command staff, the deputy chiefs, and some of their other staff too, and with David. So the three options I'm going to go through are basically the ones that made it to the finish line. The new police facility on Continental with a substation, it would be the same regardless of whether there'll be a renovation of the existing public safety building for fire only. I'll talk about that in a minute, or whether the facility's basically torn down and replaced with a new fire facility. So in any way, both of those would happen after the police moves out. So I'm going to go through these really quickly. More than happy to entertain any questions, but again, it's hard to, 10 months worth of work in 15 or so minutes. But this is Continental. It's a really good site. We did some original looking at it back in December, January, and February to make sure that both a police, a standalone police, and or a police and a substation would fit on this site, and it does. There are a couple of things about public safety design, and I'm going to just touch on them really quickly that we look for in a site. One of them is that you want to have more than two means of egress and ingress. This does have that. Police, as you see, is on this side. Substations over here. You have an apparatus apron right here. You have police parking in the back. We're able to have this access point, and then the apparatus bays. And then for fire is in red. Police should be blue. It's kind of lilac colored. And then the visitors parking here because there is a pretty good size community room / EOC / training room here. So the police wanted to have a little more public parking. The parking for police and fire is secured. That's another thing that we look at. So we have security here, and there's a driveway that exists right here that can stay. But overall, the site, worked really well. And And it's a 2-story facility. You'll see in a minute. Fingers crossed. Whoop, went the wrong way. All right. So I'm going to just quickly, so this is the footprint that you saw on the site plan. And so I'm going to walk you through this real quick. So we worked extensively with the gentleman on my left here, Chief Pola and Deputy Chief McCain, on the police side. You know, one of the things I've probably worked on more than 2.5 dozen police facilities, you know, in the last 10 years. And every one is unique, right? We always talked about how I'm looking at the police chief and deputy chief. They're all unique. And it's not cookie cutter. You know, there's basic good planning for a good police station, including be able to be CALIA certified, and the security of the public as well as the officers and the police staff, which is unfortunately these days is a key driver in the design of police stations. But this facility, and our design doesn't bend like that. That's a screen. I want to point that out. But the public park's over here. So there's a public lobby vestibule. There's a community room / training room here. And so the public can come in, use this common area, the records area. If you have to come to a police station to get a record, an accident report or whatever, it's right off the lobby, and then dispatch is right off the, and then patrols off the lobby as well with a window. So you have eyes on this thing 24/7. You know, police works in 3 shifts 24/7, so somebody's there all the time. Beyond that point, it's a secure facility on the first floor with patrol here, mechanical supports, evidence holding, sally port, booking intake, processing, all self-contained, so the public really has access to these areas, including an interview room, a bathroom, lobby, a nice lobby, etc. On the left-hand side, and this is where doing a combined facility takes a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of thinking how to do it so it works well, because when we do that, it actually does save some space. There's some savings to a combined facility. Anywhere from 5 to 15% of the overall footage can be saved if they can share some. In this case, this is the fire substation. It's 2 bays. One large apparatus and 2 double stack for smaller apparatus and ambulance. And then this is the bunker ready room, the radio room, everything that you need to and the support like decontamination, decon, all the locker rooms for the firefighters coming off a call. So when you design a fire station, the apparatus bays are the hot zone coming in from a call, you know, contaminated with your PPE, maybe from a chemical fire or something like that. Then you want to be able to decontaminate in these locker rooms, shower off, and then by the time you go upstairs to the living quarters, you'll see in a minute, that's the cold zone. This is actually the warm zone. So I'm gonna move on to see if I get this right here. I just pressed the button, but nothing happened. Whoops. Oh, I don't know what happened there. We may need our tech assistant. I just pressed the forward button and it did something. I'm not sure what. Sorry about that. Technology will fail you when you most need it. My dad always said that.
That new remote so folks at home can see the laser pointer.
Ah,
They can
awesome.
see it on the camera.
Awesome. By the way, my apologies on the cover of the report. It says town everywhere except for the very top of the city, so we have to make that change. I noticed that tonight at 6:15 before I left home. So sorry about that. See that? Yeah. Everywhere else says town, but in that one place it says city. Sorry about that. There we go. I'll do it. All right. You be my Vanna? All right. Perfect. So the upstairs, so when you do this kind of facility, it's not like designing an apartment building or a shopping center or an office building. Somehow things stack vertically is critical, especially because in a police station, as I joke with a chief and deputy chief, usually 70% of the space program wants to be on the first floor, you know? So how you balance that is always a little bit of a challenge as well. So the elevator that gets you up here, if you're public, is right here. This is the only common hallway for public. you would have to be, called up or escorted to go up. And that was the desire of the police department. Up here, you've got the dispatch area. There's a nice open area to the lobby. To make some things balance out, we were able to create an opening. This is a concept, first of all. Nobody's building from this. It's a high-level concept, but we're able to put a nice two-story space inside the lobby because we also needed to balance the space on the first floor with a second floor. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, it wasn't exactly the same square footage on both floors, if you're with me. So that's a nice feature. Beyond here is detectives. We have the men and women officers' locker rooms. We have police toilet rooms that serve administration, which is over here. This is administration in blue, and then detectives over here. And then we had an area above the Sally port and some of the evidence intake. Which we were able to do kind of a little outside deck area. We always try to build an area within a police station that officers can come back and decompress from a call. It's a very stressful job, as you might know, and providing an area that's a little bit softer or maybe a little bit outside space is always a good idea. We did that in Manchester, the Manchester Police Department as well. So. This is where the sort of magic happens because this is the upper part of the substation, and the fire department, Chief Wilkin can tell you, can use the fitness room and the agility and fitness room here. So that's a shared function, and we have to be very careful in the design because we didn't want fire to be able to get beyond this secured point while being able to share this great facility here for fire staff. So upstairs in the substation are bunk rooms, and we call the living area the firehouse, which is a day room, kitchen, dining facility, and a couple of offices, and then 2 unisex washrooms that would be used by fire staff and they're unisex. So they contain a toilet, a shower, and a sink. Can be used by any gender and can be used by all firefighters. And that's what we've been doing lately. One of the things that's critical in fire design is the accessibility from the living quarters down, in this case, down to the other level where the PPE is. So the response time per NFPA is 9 seconds? 9 seconds? 90 seconds, I'm sorry, 90 seconds. And 90 seconds. Oh, don't touch. I didn't do anything. Jeez, sorry about that. 90 seconds. So when you'll see at the other station in the current location, the 1-story seems to be the most effective way to do that. And we're having more requests for 1-story stations. They just here on this particular site, there wasn't enough real estate to really do just a 1-story complete station. I'm afraid to touch anything at this point. So forward, please. One of the things in talking to chiefs and to David, this is a concept. We talked about what this would look like. There was a desire to keep it in a sort of a contemporary New England. We weren't going to do something, at least, and we'll talk about the budget in a minute, that was going to be like wood siding or stuff like that. It's a masonry, mostly building on the fire side. I'm afraid to touch this now. We did show some siding, but this would not be a vinyl siding. This would be cement board, just to bring a little bit of difference and a little bit of variation to the facade. Again, this is just a concept. It's not really meant to be a construction document by any means, but it does give an idea of the massing of the building and how fire and police do have kind of their own identities within the overall facility, which everybody felt was important. Next, please. And in the back here, again, it's just a concept. But in the back, you can see that deck, which is outside here, which is over the Sally port right here, and the evidence intake. So that gives you an idea of the overall concept for this. When again, the schematic design, we're going to be looking, there's 100 ways to do this. We look at many, many other ways to do it as well, but this gives you just a general idea of the scale and the massing as a 2-story building. Next, please. So the budget, I don't know if you could see that. I'm going to refer to my sheet. So in doing the conceptual budgets for all three options, we have on staff, as a consultant, we have a professional cost estimator. He's based out of Bedford, New Hampshire. I'm doing multiple projects with him, similar to this throughout New Hampshire and southern Maine. We look at this as, I think, David, you mentioned this as a mid-level construction that's going to be mostly masonry, steel frame, something very durable. Some communities are building, some smaller communities are building buildings that might last 20 years that are made from wood construction and so forth, kind of like a big house. We didn't, from talking to everybody that we spoke to, the desire to do something a little more durable and permanent than that. So without getting overly excited about doing very expensive construction. This is a very durable facility. I think, David, again, you mentioned this should last, again, the current facility is 46 years old now, I think. So this would last, when we did the planning and the programming, we're looking 20 years forward, minimum. Beyond 20 years, the windshield gets a little bit muddy, But we're not designing for today, in other words, right? So basically, we had a range of numbers that were in the 325 to 350. We had a low and a high within a reasonable, swag of that low to high. And we also include a contingency for design, because this is strictly a concept. Include the contractor's overall general conditions fees, fees of a construction manager if you go the CM route. And that led to approximately, I don't know if you can see this. Do you have paper that shows you this in front of you? Yes? Okay. Because I know it's hard to read there. Of approximately 10.7 on the low and about 11.558 on the high. And then putting on the soft costs that go with that, which is architectural fees, geotech, engineering, permitting fees, builder's risk insurance. I'm not going to read through all of that, some furniture, things like that. 20% is about a reasonable number for a facility like this. You're coming out with a total number on the low end of about 12.9 and on the high end about 13.8. I'm just rounding a little bit. Also in there is a breakdown between what is the police and what is the fire. Those numbers are for 2022. And again, David mentioned this already, but we figured that, well, this goes for a warrant, let's say in March, and it's successful, which we all hope it will be. It would take, pretty much the remaining part of the year to do final design, construction documents, and be able to actually buy the project out, whether it's through CM or general contractor bid, in the first quarter of 2024, Q1, which would be probably more like February, March. So working with Mark Jobin, our estimator, the escalation, we've been seeing escalations of over 9% the last 2 years, partly because lack of labor, partly because of lumber and other material shortages and supply lines. So a lot of our clients are asking about that escalator. So this escalator is 15%, 1.5, roughly between now and end of Q1 of 2024, which is roughly 18 months or 6 quarters of escalation. Are you with me? Yes? Okay. The police also asked to have as an alternate the ability to have a carport, not fully enclosed, but a carport over 13 vehicles on the site plan, the one closest to the building. That has to do with the fact that we're in northern New England, and the chiefs can speak to the fact that you don't want to go out on a call or go out on a patrol and have to, clear necessarily 2 feet of snow or ice off your car. We are actually getting a lot more requests for that. I'm working with 3 other municipalities in New Hampshire. Some are around here, some are farther north in New Hampshire, and everybody's been asking about some covered, not enclosed, but covered parking, not for every vehicle, but for some patrol vehicles, okay? What's not included are moving costs. The beauty of this approach is that there's no temporary facilities for fire. They would just move part of their crew here and apparatus, and the police would just move. There's no temporary facilities. You build it and they will come, kind of thing, so, okay? Can I go to the next one?
Any questions?
I was just gonna wait till.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. So all these projects, both new construction projects, thank you, David, I'm sorry. Both this one and the new fire, which would, one of the options on Court Street, will be designed to the new State of New Hampshire Energy Code, which just got adopted in the last few months. It wasn't really clear to us whether the town wants to do a lead facility or not, but generally by using good design standards, and we're very sustainable friendly. O'Valley Brensinger actually is a leader in New Hampshire in sustainability design. It would be somewhere close to what a current LEED silver level would be. There was a question made about net zero. The reality about net zero is it's difficult to put a number to it until you understand how you're going to reach that by actually doing actual final design, because there's a lot of ways to get there. But in talking to multiple estimators and also a few general contractors and a couple of construction managers, the feeling was that it's about 3 to 4% to make it net zero ready. And the nice thing about that, however, is that this is not a condominium building or a shopping center. You're going to own this building for, 40 to 50 years. And the payback tends to be in that 12 to 16 year or 17 year range. Again, depends what steps you do to get to net zero. But generally, the payback is pretty aggressive, given the fact that you're going to own this building for a long time. Okay? All right. Next, please. So the next thing is the renovation of the existing building. So we were asked to look at the renovation, and to be frank with you, we didn't want to just look at it to say, well, we're going to spend $4 million, no more, including soft costs, so $4 million all in, and not really sure what we could really do for that. This is a conceptual level study. So what we did, working closely with Chief Wilking and Deputy Chief Paisan, is we looked at the program, the space program, and we wanted to see how it fit into this facility once the police moves to their new building, right? And some of your operations move also to Continental. So basically, I'm almost afraid to touch this now. Basically, the building footprint doesn't really change. The only thing we looked at, which is an alternate in the budget, was to create a spot for the historic steam engine, which currently is housed near the recreation department. I'm sure you know where it is, in that one-story building, which may or may not be around. So the idea was to try to provide a home for it here. This doesn't really change the parking there. It doesn't really change much of anything outside the building. Okay. Next, please. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. We worked really closely, John Adams and I from my office, and worked very closely with Chief Wilking and Deputy Chief Paisan in trying to understand how the program could fit in here with reasonably a limited amount of actual reconfiguration. And what you see here is the areas in white are the ones that remain the same. And the ones, can you go back, please? I'm not sure what happened there. The areas in red are fire department. The addition, which is an option, is in the lower part here, which is for the steam engine. And the circulation is shown in yellow. So basically, the fire also had in the program a smaller EOC and training room. And this is where currently dispatches and booking intake and the Sally port. So that area does have to be reconfigured. We also have to look at some areas that are adjacent to the apparatus base to provide the proper level of support, decontamination, and warm space, right, Chief, that we needed, which currently the fire station does not have. When this station was designed, 45, 6, 7 years ago, that was not a thing. It's just only been a thing for, what'd you say, Chief, about the last 10 years with NFPA? Yep. So we had to do some of that, but we were very judicious in how we did it. Next, please. This exciting image, it just shows in dashed lines some of the changes that would have to be made to the existing booking. This is the holding cells, the sally port, the intake processing, and this is dispatch. Some of that would have to be reconfigured for this to really work for fire in that first floor. Next, please. Oh, there's one thing. I'm sorry. You go back. I apologize, Dave. One more. One of the things that we did is that is one very large piece of apparatus, which barely fits in the bays, and Chief Wilkie can tell you mirrors have been a problem, and it barely fits. So what we did is it took the repair bay, which is here, showed widening that so you can get a truck in there, the big apparatus, without possibly damaging what is what is that? How many hundreds of thousands is that piece of equipment? It's $1 million piece of equipment. So anyway, thank you, David. You can go forward. I just wanted to show you that. So upstairs, what we did again, we were very judicious in working with the chief and deputy chief. Everything in white, which are the living quarters, bunk rooms were going to stay. We just some upgrades to the locker rooms, fitness area, trying to create the appropriate firehouse design. And then in the area where the police offices basically are right now, I think Chief Pullen sits right here, those are renovated to meet the requirement of fire. And that area has been renovated multiple times, I believe, Chief Pullen, already. It just is very idiosyncratic just for police right now. The fire program is a little bit different. So we just really wanted to see if it fit, and it does. Next, please. So this just shows you where we had to do some looking at some wall removal, things like that. But wherever we could keep stuff, we kept it. Just, again, trying to be as judicious as possible. I think the town owed itself to find out whether the fire program could fit in this building the way it needs to fit for 20 years out, and it does. This is just the existing building. You already know what it looks like. So we just had a three-dimensional view. Next, please. So I'm going to walk you through the budget real quick. So we were given a direction that we wanted to keep this to $4 million or under, including soft costs. And what we did was we looked at this, and I'm looking at the upper part of this up here, that we looked at the fact that there's very little site work related to the project, at least at a conceptual level. The apparatus base have very minor upgrades and changes. And then the remaining part of the square footage of the building, we divided into two categories. One was more extensive renovation, which would include removing some of the walls, as we showed, and doing some new construction, internal construction. And then the other part, equal amount, was mostly cosmetic, like paint, carpet, flooring, possibly a new ceiling, maybe some new lighting, things like that. And they have the contingencies built in to that, as well as the GC conditions and the CM fees. And then for the project soft costs, it's quite a bit lower there because, as you see, the assumptions made is that sort of the apparatus, the equipment, the furnishings, things that are there would actually be reused. So the soft costs are really limited to mostly architectural engineering fees and permitting fees and a few things like that. We also looked at what it would be like to replace the current mechanical systems and plumbing, electrical systems in the building distribution, because they're really, even though they're not 47 years old necessarily, each one of them, they're not really in the greatest condition. They're okay, but looking forward for 10, 15 years, they need some maybe replacement, frankly. So that we had a number for that of 1.3. Some of the upgrades are in the base number of under or 4 million under, but it's mostly reconfiguration, things like that, not replacing systems, right? Then we had the addition for the steam engine, about $180,000. That's in that corner of the blue area. We had replacement of all the windows and exterior doors. The windows are older. I mean, they're not energy efficient. That was about $380,000. Adding an elevator, two-stop elevator, to go to the second level where the fire bunk rooms are. There's no elevator in the building now. That's about $380,000 because you have to cut the shaft, put the elevator in as a machine room. It's not just the elevator itself. The elevator is $100,000, but the work that's related to it. And then upgrading the exterior envelope to be more energy efficient, that would be about $370,000. That would basically, what it really means is you really skin the inside of the building with another layer of insulation and so forth to make it a higher R value, because the building was built in the mid-70s and it was built to that technology, right? One of the things we looked at was how you could do it without having to move fire out, because part of fire would move chief to Continental. And we saw that as possibly a 3-phase implementation where you would renovate the parts the police would vacate first, use that as swing space for fire, renovate other parts of fire. So maybe 3 total phases. That does add to the cost, and it's baked into that $4 million to do the phasing. Trying to think of anything else here of any real importance. It doesn't include relocation costs or moving the antenna system. I know the police has got a budget for moving the antenna to Continental, and the antenna that's there now, I would assume would remain, because you would need that. So, all right. And last but not least is the new fire station at, excuse me, get some water here, at Court State. So here we were tasked with doing a 1-story fire facility. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're seeing much more of a direction wherever a site allows to do a 1-story facility, because it really enhances response time and movement of fire personnel to respond to a call. Is that a correct statement? Yes. So here, we also try to be respectful of the current parking lot. We actually are very, very miserly in our approach to spending money. We know every dollar counts. And in this situation here, most of this parking's existing, very little upgrade in this area. This is the fire parking. It's secured area for fire staff. Public parking is right here. The apparatus bays are here now, but part of the apron is there now. It's hard to say whether we could reuse that part of that apron or not, but at least we kept it pretty much where the curb cut is now. Additional parking for fire staff here, and that meets all the parking requirements. On this side, we show EMS ambulance apron, which is smaller. So we split the ambulance EMS away from the main large apparatus. Public would park here and come in. This corner area where it's parking now, which used to be, I believe, a gas station, right, David? Yeah. That would be a nice little green space right at the corner, which would be really nice. You could do something very nice there, a little plaza. You could do something very nice. It's a very nice corner. Because we don't need that for parking anymore, and we did that on purpose to open that corner up. Next, please. Basically, it's a very, very economical, very tight plan. You've got the 4 large apparatus bays. This is the $1 million piece of apparatus right here. You've got 4. Unfortunately, the dot is red on the red, but these are the EMS ambulance bays. It works really well with larger apparatus rolling out to this side. There is a public lobby entrance. This is the training EOC with its own bathroom and it's self-sufficient, its own little kitchenette, little bathroom. There's a public bathroom here. This is fire administration, including fire permit, including permitting, plan review. We worked very closely with Chief looking at Deputy Chief Paislin on how public would access parts of this versus the parts that were, would be secured and private. Back here is the actual firehouse, the bunk rooms, day room, kitchen, locker rooms. This is laid the same way out, where you've got the hot zone is the apparatus bays. This is the warm zone, and once you get in here, where the living area is, that's the cold zone, meaning that you're totally decontaminated as you enter that area. You're not carrying contaminants on your body into the kitchen or the living spaces. Last but not least, these are just some general ideas. Again, we're looking at something New England contemporary. You could design it 100 different ways, but this is a concept. We're looking more at scale. This is actually what the corner would be of the two main streets. This is that green area that we talked about. EMS bays, ambulance EMS bays, large apparatus bays. This is really the other corner, and these are offices, living quarters, and an employee staff entrance in the back for fire staff. So it's because it's a one story, the profile is not as big actually as the current building that's there now. Next, please. So last but not least, this budget. So this budget has a lot of similarities to the initial police and substation, where we had a low and a high range. Very similar number for that. The site development number is a little bit higher than it would have been on the state of renovation, because we are doing actual work. You got to demolish the current building. You got to work some of the parking lot back. You got to do some other things on the street. This is really, as a conceptual budget, includes all the key parts, including design contingency and a contractor's condition, general conditions, the CM fee if you hire CM or a GC fee. And then the soft costs are 20%, more like the police and fire substation. And I'm not going to read through everything that's there, but includes a new backup generator. In a renovation, the generator stays. All that stuff stays the way it is. It includes a backup generator, includes some signage, includes furniture, fixtures, includes some of the fire equipment like an extractor, kitchen equipment for the commercial kitchen and the firehouse, things of that nature. So that comes out to about 10.8 on the low end, 11.5 on the high end. And then the same thing with the escalation to Q1 of 2024, as we did on the first one. And you can see the escalation there. Like I said, it's approximately 15%. The alternates were really just making things a little bit larger. We worked very hard with the chief and deputy chief to cut the footage down as much as possible to keep it down, but make it functional for 20 years plus in the future. The other alternates were really making the base 5 foot deeper. That was one. The large apparatus base, not the ambulance base. Making the hallways an extra foot wider, from 5 to 6 feet. Providing the steam engine as an alternate to provide an area where we can have the display for the steam engine and historic steam engine, and that was approximately $457,000. And then the net zero, again, at 3 to 4%, would be an option to make the building net zero ready beyond good, solid energy saving design, which this would be because it's a brand new building. Did I lose you? Are you with me?
No, I'm with you.
All right. That's it.
Okay. Before, I know I want to give folks an opportunity to speak. I know we probably have members from the public, or if the chiefs want to speak, but any questions from the board for Bob
Well,
before we open it up?
I think they're all for him, but
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
not sure. Okay, just bear with me. You okay if I keep that off for a minute, so I'm not fighting with Bob over my... So, first question I have is, how many fire personnel on Continental, how many fire personnel does that provide for?
So I'm going to have the chief answer that because we have a certain number of bunk rooms,
Sorry.
but
It's gonna
no, it's okay. But
commingle here.
he and I work very closely together on that,
Okay.
so I don't want to misspeak on something.
So initially moving in, we're gonna have 4 firefighters downtown, and there's 5 bunk rooms available, and we're gonna have 3 firefighters at Continental, and there's 4 bunk rooms and a flex space. So we're gonna have an officer quarters that 25 years down the road, if the town decided to staff that with another body, another person, we'd have room for 5 without taking space. So initially, there's 5 and 5. We're staffed at 7 today. So you can see 5 and 5 is up to 10 employees there. So again, there's some built-in space. Bob's done a great job in
20 years out.
allowing us to.
That was, you answered the question and the reason why I asked it. So future expansion, I'm still in Continental. Is there enough land there for future expansion of the fire substation if necessary?
So.
For equipment, why?
Right. So let me answer that in detail because in doing that layout, one time there was talk of a third bay, and it could be done by expanding it to the left as you look at the plan. But in talking with the chief and deputy chief, by providing one large apparatus and then a double loaded smaller apparatus like an ambulance, a fire vehicle, a response vehicle, they felt that was adequate. Now, the police program, again, looks 20 years out at least or more. So theoretically, there would not be any expansion. You could expand into the public parking if you wanted to for police. But for fire, I believe that we reached the idea that the 2 bays were adequate. Is that correct? Yes.
But to answer your question, we would lose that parking to the left.
Yeah, let me,
So it is available if you needed it?
The spaces,
Here.
we'd have to move parking to the green instead of the red. So we
Here.
need an access point.
Right.
and park, but we could expand.
Okay.
and the nice thing about this property is, as I mentioned like half hour ago, I think, is that you have, in this situation, you have 3 means of egress and ingress out of the site. 1, 2, 3. And if for some reason this was to be another bay, you could still put we could still have a driveway there.
Okay. Do you want me to continue, Mr. Chair, or give someone else a chance?
No, go ahead.
Okay. My next question is, why secured parking? That, to me, would add an extra cost to this project. Is there a reason for this that I'm not understanding?
I can address it, and I think
So
Chief
there's 2
Pullen
security
should.
questions I have. I really want to understand why we need those security entrances and extra gate
Right.
rooms, if you will, and why we need security so the fire department can't get beyond an access point.
That's in the building. I'll address that in a minute as well. So I'm going to address these, and if Chief Pullen wants to jump in, welcome to do it. So one of the thing that has really become an issue in the last 5 to 10 years has been the security and safety of police officers coming to work or leaving work, and police, non-sworn, non-badge staff, as well as dispatch. There's been all kinds of incidents across the country, including here in New Hampshire. So current design for public safety is to provide separate public parking, separate parking for police staff, whether it's police vehicles, which are going on the street, or police staff, whether it's sworn officers or non-badge staff, like administrative staff or dispatch staff or 911 calls. Every facility that we're doing right now is following that guideline throughout the Northeast. That's why we do that. The second question you had was, do you want to add anything to that, Chief? Because that was the answer to the other question.
Yeah, it's better to
Yeah,
have
so just
him
envision,
weigh in.
the very basic, envision an officer beginning his or her shift and going out to their cruiser with a firearm, with their duty bag, and a civilian that may want to do harm parks right next to him, or is waiting in the car next to him. Or how about we're bringing a prisoner in and you're coming to the police department just to do fingerprints or to get a pistol permit, and you park back there because it's open, and now you're intermingling with a prisoner potentially, right? A lot of expensive equipment in the police cars, laptops, again, firearms. So we just don't want, and it's a fence. It's a fence with a gate. So I don't know what the actual cost of would be.
Not that major
But
of a
it's
cost.
not that major of a cost to have that security.
I'm trying to be proactive with educating people and them understanding why we're looking at security gates where we don't have them now. We have a
Yes.
separate parking and all of that. I just think it's important to get those questions and answers out there.
Yes,
And
very
an
good.
understanding.
And we don't have it now, and we do have people that are walking, and they don't know that the front entrance, it's kind of obscure. So they'll walk up to the back to the sally port, and they're kind of Am I in the right place? Am I not? So this would prevent that.
Thank you.
And the other question was a very good question that had to do with the layout of the second floor and the first floor too. But so on the first floor, fire can access that lobby, vestibule, public lobby, and that larger community training space that's on the first floor. On the second level, fire can access the gym, fitness, agility area. Beyond that point, they're not able to access the secured police facilities. And that has to do with the fact that, let's say, I'm a fireman and I have a cousin who's done portrayed a crime, and there's evidence or there's something, or there's an arresting officer that's next door to me. You cannot get CALIA certification without a separation. You cannot be secured in a police environment if even fire would go into that area. So that's one of the key things of designing a combined facility.
Could you explain the certification that you just said?
Yeah, CALIA certification is something that a lot of departments that we work with are pursuing or they have done. And that is basically a certification that has a series of guidelines, and not only in the safety and security of the officers, but also community outreach and community relations and things of that nature. I think the chiefs can speak to that. But
In the benefit of being certified for that would be good to understand too. Thank you.
I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm just saying that's part of it in the future if
No,
they
no,
wanted to
that's
do
good.
that.
We need to get this
So-
all out there and have everyone understand all the nuances. Can I keep going? I have a few more. You want
ahead.
to answer that
So
before I?
accreditation is, it's going to become the norm across the country. Some states already mandate it. New Hampshire is now about to get state accreditation. We received congressional directed funding for ourselves to get CALIA accredited. And that's just going to be a best practice going forward. All agencies are going to be eventually have some form of accreditation. And that just really assures you that we have tested and true policies, our officers are following those policies, and, everything's in place, from supervision all the way down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Only a few more, I promise.
Go ahead.
Okay, so now I'm on the fire department. In the plan, has anyone thought of where we might put the fire department, whether it's renovated or a new building, where we could locate a room for the police department to have a presence downtown?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty. I mean, I think in either of those options, there could be a small touchdown space, and that's not unusual to have in a community, have a police touchdown space that's really just a smaller office or something. Usually they have a separate outside door, and again, not accessible really from the firehouse.
Yeah, I just
So I
want to
don't think
make
that's a
sure
problem.
we keep that in the,
Yeah.
at least in the planning.
Yeah.
Apparently, we haven't decided that that's not, but I still want to, we can't use the wheelwright room. I'm going to keep repeating that one. But I do think it's important personally that we have at least a room where there's an office area for at least one or two police officers if needed for whatever. Elevator on the second floor in renovation. I can't remember, we've gone through so much. What's on the second floor if we renovate on the,
So the elevator in a firehouse is a discussion that happens in every community that has more than one story firehouse, and they're doing renovation or building new, because theoretically, for the firefighters, men and women who are firefighters, you really can't be physically handicapped and be a firefighter. So most of that second floor, in the current building, at least that first. I'm going to use the pointer, Dave. I can't tell you what's going to happen when I do, but all of this is the firehouse, where including bunks and locker rooms and toilet rooms and physical fitness area. The office area is over here, and that's close to where the police office, police administration is, and those are basically the chief, deputy chief, people of that nature, captains, fire prevention officer. Actually, they're downstairs for the public, but theoretically, no public would ever go up there. Okay? Public would not go up there. It's a firehouse only. You could decide as a town whether you want to put an elevator in, or we just broke it out a separate number, given the limitation of the 4 million.
Okay. Could,
But the public area on the first floor will be fully accessible.
so there's not going to be any, this is something that, Chief, if I could follow up with you on this one. So when you and I had a meeting a while back, and there are some rooms that get used up there as it stands now, and no way for anyone with any kind of limitations to get up there without going the stairs. So are you comfortable if there's a renovation? I know, sorry to put you on the spot, but
No,
I
I
think it's
agree. And
important to cover.
I'm going to ask Dave Sharples to go back to another picture. The short answer is, we are absolutely trying to work within the $4 million budget. And a $4 million budget may or may not include an elevator. I believe it's important. We have people come in and pay their ambulance bill, want to see the fire chief, want to discuss something, they're going to need to go upstairs. So I think the elevator is going to be part of the main focus of that fire station, whether it's renovation or obviously the one-story building, we won't need it.
Yeah.
That picture right there speaks volumes to my concerns of a renovation. I live in this town, I understand what we're trying to do, and I fully support if this is the direction we want to go. But when you look at that apparatus floor, compared to what we have at the substation, there is no place to move on that apparatus floor. There's no place today, there'll be no place tomorrow, and there'll be no place 20 years from now. There's no place to train on that floor. There's no place to do any function without pulling a vehicle outside. Major drawback to a renovation. The dollar value looks good. I think the upstairs functions perfectly. I think the guys are excited about crew rooms and a real gym and all of that. It's the apparatus features of that renovation. Concerns me. I'm not opposed to it. It's a concern, and the elevator would be just another one. But we were tasked with, Bob was tasked with bringing that forward, and that's where we are. That's why we have some of the different iterations, if you will, and the add-on pieces.
Yeah.
I just want to say that on the other, also, somebody coming to the fire station, the first floor with the public areas, which are here, will be fully accessible. There's a bathroom showing. So, I mean, anybody who is to come there to meet with the chief or go to a meeting in this meeting room down here or see the fire prevention officer can do that without having to go upstairs.
So thank you. You answered about the apparatus question before I could have, one more. I promise, just one more.
We are here to ask questions, so don't
I know, but
apologize.
could you explain a little bit more about the three-phase approach?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a concept. We're not a schematic design or design development or anything, but this is not a 10,000 foot, but like a 1,000 foot level look, right? So when you look at this, and I mentioned this, is that police moves out here and also upstairs, and you could renovate these areas first. And also, I don't know if you can go to the next level, David, I'm sorry. Yep, and you can renovate this. Renovate it to what it has to be. You use it for swing space. You move stuff in there. Then you renovate the next piece. The beauty of this is that most of the bunk room area, the current kitchen, the part of the living areas here, and also on the first floor, David. I'm sorry, I keep jumping back and forth, but in most of the apparatus areas remain mostly not heavily affected. So we just looked at it and said, three-phase kind of looks about right. Because you want to have these guys move out. Now, in the other option, they have to move out because the building's going away. They have to move out for X amount of time.
What would that look like? Don't know yet. Okay. Thank you.
There were several things looked at, such as other facilities in town, but for the renovation, it seemed reasonable to assume that kind of a three-phase approach.
Okay.
Now, having said that, I mean, they're contiguous. They're not, nobody's coming, doing work and leaving for 3 years. I mean, they're, contiguous, same project, right? So.
Okay, that's it for me for right now. Thank you.
Selectwoman Cowan?
I'm interested in the energy conversation that I suspect we're about to have.
Okay.
And then I'm also interested in what Julie is thinking.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Are you looking at me?
I am.
I guess my first thought was we've been really fortunate that we've been able to squeeze the number of years out of that building we currently have. And I really mean squeeze. And with the changes in technology and et cetera, I mean, I have no problem with the new station and substation. The question comes up with the lifetime of the renovated building versus a newly built building for the fire department. And you hear these are estimates about whether it's 20 years for renovation, 40 years for a new building, and which one is penny wise and pound foolish. And to me, it says 40 years is great. The debt will be won't last as long as my retirement. So that's kind of where I am. Selectwoman Belanger asked a lot of the questions that I had also, or got you to explain them. I just want to ensure during this process, this design process, that we're really thinking about staffing and technology for the next 20 or 40 years, because, as we know, the fire department has been having to hire more personnel because of, the different licensing needs, or what, I can't think of the word, but and to make it safer for our employees. So I just want to be sure that we're really taking a look at, is one extra room enough for 20 years? I know we can't predict the future, but it sounds to me a little less, it's going to be more than that. So we need to think about that more. And I'll be interested in listening to the energy costs. I think we already did a level 1 energy review, 2008, I think, and highlighted the things that needed to be fixed and changed. And the windows were one, air conditioning, all of that infrastructure updates would go a long way. I know we can try to reuse what's there, but they're not efficient systems that we have there right now. So that's part of the going green conversation. For me, that leans to either a whole new set of HVAC or a new building. So got to start weighing these kind of things in the costs. And my computer's going to die very soon, so I have to go get my plug. So I guess I'm back, and then there's the whole unknown of where does the fire department go when if we do a whole new building, where do we have the trucks? We could go to the old fire station, which is the senior center, but there's not enough room there. I guess those are my only comments. It's just for us to be looking in the conversation about what's going to be the biggest bang for the buck. Is it a 40-year building or we estimate it's a 40-year building, or a 20-year renovation? And having come from the world of architecture, I know that 20 years is pretty low for buildings built in this day. It was low or high actually when I was working in the 80s. So, a 20-year renovation surprises me a little bit.
Thank you, Selectwoman Gilman. So before you leave, sir, just these are some of the questions. We come prepared. We read your memo, and it was a great presentation. But we also, most of us, meet periodically individually with the chiefs, with staff. Mm-hmm. And we're fortunate that we live in a community that really has their finger on the pulse. And a lot of these questions and comments that we ask and make tonight are based on feedback we get.
Yeah, good questions.
So that's why we ask these questions, because this presentation is not just this is for the folks watching. We're asking questions on behalf of ourselves, but also of the community. And so take note of that when you have public meetings. I mean, it's great to look at the budget. It's great to look at this room and that room, but these are also some questions and concerns folks are going to ask. So, when you're putting your presentations together, that's something to keep in mind. Thank you.
No, good questions. I just want to say on the renovation option that, in the lower dollar value, that's sort of 4 and under, it's really a shorter term solution. I think if you're going to be in that building a longer duration, 20 years was thrown out as an example, you are definitely looking at upgrading the mechanicals and really doing something to the envelope to make it more energy efficient than it was in 1976, and that building is built very solid, but it also has a lot of idiosyncrasies in the way it's laid out, so because it's a combined building, so and it was also done to the way policing and fire was done back then, right, Chief? 45, 46 years ago. So I think we're very keenly aware. I would say that throughout this process, we've gotten great feedback, not just from the chiefs, but also from David and the FAC and from Russ. We definitely have not been working in a vacuum. And I would also say that the concerns that the community of Exeter has, pretty much every community we work with cares about efficiency, the cost, sustainability. Those are all things that every community you work with pretty much cares about that. So
Terrific. Well,
thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So I'd like to open it up to the public. I know we have 2 members of the Energy Committee here.
Good evening. I'm Renee Allen, Chair of the Energy Committee. And it's very exciting what we've seen here in the concept. The Energy Committee feels like it's a good time to be in on the ground level in these plans. We really like the add-on of the net zero ready. Not quite sure exactly the parameters of that, but we're at the base, so it's a good start. I think that we would like to pledge our support, the Energy Committee, to work on efficiency measures in this building and clean energy. We love to work with the police chiefs. Pleased to work again with Dave Sharples and Kristen Murphy. And as many of you know, there was recently signed the Inflation Reduction Act, which had many climate measures in it. And the Energy Committee, will definitely be leaning heavily upon Clean Energy New Hampshire, the advocates at the New Hampshire State House, to track down these monies, grants, rebates, incentives, to apply them to this project, to get this payback period as short as possible. But it's very exciting to be in at the ground level of this type of a project, and thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Hi.
Hi.
Amy Farnham, 3 Little River Road, also on the Energy Committee. So Renee spoke well for us. We are energy nerds for sure, and we want to see this. It's a beautiful plan. All 3 of them are great plans. It does look like there's some flexibility maybe to do energy efficiency measures. That 3 to 4% to make that net zero ready. Can I ask what that means?
So again, just to be very clear. So speaking to Mike. Yeah. Never been told I wasn't loud enough. That's a new one. But so it's one thing to say that these buildings are being, again, it's a concept. First of all, we're not doing schematic design yet or design development. So there's some assumptions had to be made in doing the budgeting as to what levels we were going to meet. So we did have conversations early on with David and the chiefs and the FAC, and a lot of conduit came from David, from the FAC, and probably from you, Russ, because we asked, does this town want to have a LEED Gold facility, or does it, or what does it want to do, right? And the answer was that we want to be energy efficient, but there wasn't a clear, labeling, let's call it that, or a benchmark. Recently, New Hampshire just passed an energy code, okay, literally in the last few months, which ups the R value and ups the design R values and so forth for buildings. So we would minimally meet that, but we look to be better than that. Now, that's just in the way the building's designed, not necessarily in any net zero applications. To do a real net zero calculation, we would have to run full energy models and understand exactly what steps we would take to be net zero, such as, rooftop solar panels and geothermal or whatever it might be. We're not at that level. This is a concept design. So what we try to do more is to try to capture what that additional cost might be to get the building to be net zero ready, so that it can be net zero. So a lot of our clients now, a lot of our towns we're working with are either trying to build that in for the future, so that when they can do it, they can just easily implement it. Maybe it's the best way I can explain it. So, that was taken into account in that number. That number, the 3 to 4%, is just a ballpark, because we would need to really design the whole thing to really understand exactly how we would reach a net zero facility. This is a little bit different than our normal project, because a police facility is 24/7, 365, and never sleeps. It's open all the time, constantly. It has to have 100% backup generation power in case of power failure. And a fire station in apparatus bays, when you open those doors in the middle of the winter when it's 20 below out, the temperature in there is going to be basically at 0 degrees within a minute or two, right, Chief? So, but the other parts of the facility are very highly energy efficient. So we're totally in sync with you folks. I just think that at this conceptual level, all we can do is kind of build some numbers to carry that idea through until we actually design the project. I think that's why we proposed that the current facility, which is still up on the screen, that an extended part of that renovation, which would go beyond that 4 million, would be to address the envelope and the mechanical systems. And the envelope would not just be the windows and the exterior doors, but actually the wall system around the building, which mean that we would be basically skinning the inside of the building with additional. We just did that for 2 projects for the state of Maine up in Augusta. Both buildings were from the 50s. This is a little bit younger building than that. So does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I want to make sure I was very clear, so.
Yeah. So I just want to put a plug in, even though this is high level. I just want to make sure that it's on record that we are being considerate about roof lines. And, I saw in one of the drawings a hip roof, which isn't ideal for solar. And, when we're looking at renovating the building on Court Street, Bow Street, or Bow, however you want to say it, is south facing, Bow and the, that's north facing. So if we were to do a renovation on that one, just being considerate of the roof line. We talked about covered parking. That's something that we could do solar on there. We're looking at greening our fleet, why not do covered parking and EV chargers and all of that? So I just don't want this to come down to necessarily like the function and then the people that want, green things. Like, this is something that should be combined. Doing these things is looking towards the future. These things have a payback, as everybody knows. So it's not just sort of one or the other. I think that we can get them all together and have a nice payback. And it's one of the few things that does pay for itself. So I just want to put that on record. Thank you.
Amy. I'd like to just say there are a lot of different players involved. Obviously, the town planner, the chiefs, facilities committee, the budget recommendations committee. I would strongly encourage the energy committee to be part of this plan, because if you look at the energy committee through the years, they have vigorously worked on energy efficient initiatives that have been very successful in this town, and their results speak for themselves. So I would really encourage the energy committee to be a part of this.
Yeah, can I just add to that it's really going to be helpful when to try to keep everyone who lives in town, our community, informed as it goes. And the whole energy part of this is going to be an important part of it, I believe. But we don't want to just spring it on as last minute and have to tweak things. So yeah, it's important that it's part of the conversation right from the beginning. Thank you.
Selectwoman Gilman?
I think I've said what I need. I agree with the Energy Committee being part of the discussion early on. With the Facilities Committee, as already weighed in, but not on the particulars yet. And really, it's the chiefs that know how their programming works best. So like you said, or as Ms. Farnham said, we got to roll it all in together and make sure we're keeping everybody's information flowing back and forth, and the considerations, everybody's going to, be aware of where compromises might need to be made, or where we can take opportunities to take advantage of opportunities to please more people, keep the cost down. That's it.
Thank you. Selectwoman Cowan?
I don't need to say anything that's already been said. My question more is, what are the next steps? What happens from here?
So, Mr. Dean, I think, does this go as a capital improvement project to the Budget Recommendations Committee?
Yes. Yeah, so we'll have to work out some of the rate impacts of the different scenarios. So we'll be discussing that with the BRC, and then the decision needs to be made ultimately as to whether this is ready for the warrant and in what format that would be.
I would suggest learning from the past. I know we've already had one public meeting that was sparsely attended. And I know the BRC has to go through their, and they won't get to the final CIP meeting until November, and then come to the board in December, January, the public budget hearing. But I think maybe having some more meetings in the fall, or getting this out there to folks so that it's not sprung at the last minute as like one public hearing, a month before deliberative session. And you're not going to have the final figures. I mean, that's a given. But I mean, just to engage the community in conversation.
Yeah, another issue to try to wrap our collective heads around is also, are we okay with the renovation of the 20 Court Street building versus building new? Or is there another thought to that? Because that's obviously going to impact the final decision as to what might go to the warrant.
So I agree with you, but my point is, if we can have some of these public hearings before we have to make that decision, we can hear from the community as to what folks want.
Yes.
Or don't want.
Right.
And can I just throw one more thought out there, is how the Parks and Rec building on Court Street could be used as some kind of temporary housing. I know it's a little odd, but we have it, it'll be empty, hopefully by then. How can that be utilized, if needed, for storage, for, parking some equipment? Hopefully, if we decide to go for a new fire department too, if we can get the timing that the engines and stuff are out there during summertime, and not when, I know, Chief, you're laughing, but I'm just trying to throw some thoughts out there. Also, if there's any updated information, just keep in mind that the planning board has their second CIP for the draft, and that is Thursday at 6:30. So I know, I'm just throwing it out there that that's there. So yeah.
Okay, great. So no action tonight, just let's move forward and.
Unless there's something that the board feels strongly about with respect to some of the options that have been brought forward. I know we're already pursuing the new police station with the substation. I don't know if the board had any further thoughts on the renovation versus the new construction with the fire. But
I'm going to speak for myself and open it up to the board for discussion, but I mean, when it was brought forward this summer, or earlier this summer, we talked about moving ahead with Continental Drive and keeping the present property for the fire. My personal opinion, I think at this point, we need to let it go through the process. We need to see how the BRC feels, facilities, energy,
okay.
the chiefs, public.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that there was consensus from us about moving forward on this plan.
Yeah, I would like to know more too on the net zero part, if it's going to be look, we want to know what's cost effective, right? I mean, what are we going to get more for our dollar out of? But are we going to get better results for the net zero if we go new? And we might be looking for a little bit more of a long-term payback on that, but I do think that there is going to be a financial savings. The more we look at that, I think it's going to be an important factor.
And there may be more available to us,
Right,
federal level, state level.
yeah.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. We did, I think, go forward with the new police station and fire substation. I think we need to take a really close look on the process of buildings, raising and the current station and building something new, because the logistics of that are just going to be huge, and will add to the cost of a new building. So it might make renovation the safer and more economic choice.
Mr. Sharples?
Thank you. I just want to address that, 'cause Rob alluded to it a couple times. Bob alluded to it a couple times. When we got the warrant to do what we did, the goal was to get to a point with a concept plan and a good number, a reliable number, to take to the voters to then proceed with final design and construction. Some of the answers there with net zero and so forth will occur during final design, which we don't have funding for at this time. So maybe there's an option, I'm just spitballing here, is if I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Russ, but I thought the impression was always to kind of split these up into potentially 2 warrant articles. If you moved forward with the police and the substation out on 6 Continental, and then you could also add final design, because then that would get us to some funding for final design that would answer all your questions. Because we can't answer those specific questions until we get additional funding.
And I have heard what Bob has said tonight in terms of the concept plan, so I know the board has a good feel for where we're at in the process, and based on that, are we ready to move something forward, and what does that look like?
I think yes. I mean, did I miss? I'm not sure if I missed something, but I mean, we already had agreed we wanted to go forward with 6 Continental for the police and the substation.
Right.
We had talked about doing something at the existing public safety for fire. We've had 2 options presented this evening, and now maybe a third. So, I mean, I'm not understand. I mean, aren't we moving forward with that? And then it's going to go to budget?
Yes, the police and the fire substation, absolutely. And we would walk through the budget process with the 2 fire options that have been
Right.
talked about tonight.
Right.
So that's what's on the table right
And then the Budget Recommendations Committee is going to look at they're going to look at the numbers. They're going to dive deeper than we did tonight, because that's what they do. And then they're going to come back and make a recommendation to the Select Board. Presumably so will the Facilities Committee, as well as possibly the Energy Committee, right?
I think
And
you
then-
have it right.
And then the Select Board's going to make a recommendation to you, to the voters, to put a warrant together. We'll go to deliberative session, and we'll see where it goes from there.
That's the process.
That's where I thought we were tonight. But in the meantime, I think we still need to have some public input, because we've got some great committees and some great committee members, but I think we've learned from the past that when we keep the public out of it until the last minute, till after budget, till after the Select Board, we find things out a little too late. So that's all I'm saying, is I think that the public should be part of
Yep,
the process.
fair enough.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Because We went out, we tried to, solicit a lot of public, sent it to all our committees, all our volunteers, to public, the website, so forth. It wasn't very well attended, that public forum we had across this. I mean, a handful of people did show up. But is there any would this forum maybe before a select board? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, where do we hold this? How do we get?
I don't think
how do we
there's
get
no
interest?
perfect answer, and we've seen it
Yeah.
before, but I think the more you make it available, is it at a select board meeting, we can have
I guess that's what I'm asking.
some sort of a, discussion like we've had tonight, but open it up a little bit more publicly, advertise it. We could do another one like we did. We could utilize Bob and his staff and Channel 22, and I mean, all that stuff. Even if you don't watch TV, it's all over social media. He's done a great job. So the answer is no. There's no perfect way to get people.
I
but
guess
Timing wise.
I was just asking if the select board was amenable if we also added like an agenda item for public input on the PD at a
again, I'm
meeting.
going to speak for
That's
myself. I'd rather have that than 6 months later say nobody told us anything.
Great.
Even
I'll
if
get
you
on
would
it
like
then.
to put it on the-
More.
Could I add,
Same,
just
I'm the
maybe
same.
putting it on our agenda a few times
Mm-hmm.
and see, all we can do is invite them, we
Yep.
can't go door to door, right? So, well, you've tried, but, the other thing is, we could do it again right after the budget committee gives their
Mm-hmm.
recommendation, and just try to do it as many times as we can. We can keep the door open, keep an open invitation, if you will, but yeah, it's a good point.
And we can work on the web presence as well of
Mm-hmm.
this project. We might be able to give it some special space on our website, some easy access to the project, some project descriptions, let people know what we're doing.
And here's another idea: is
do it
maybe
that
we
way.
could, the next communications committee meeting, let's ask them what their suggestions are.
Sure.
I mean,
Happy to.
I'm filling in
Dave-
for
Happy to do
Molly,
that.
so
they've
Bring it up.
made some great suggestions in the
Okay.
past. I mean, I think it's all hands on deck.
let me get
I
it
don't
in
think
my
there's
calendar here.
there's not one good answer.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not being, I'm really using my calendar to make a note. Okay, when is that, Molly?
So Selectwoman Gilman, I'm not putting you on the spot, but you're not next to me, so I just want to make sure one last time if you have anything else to add before we move on.
No, I think you've said it all. It's as many avenues of communication as possible. I think some larger presentation, this was really good. I really love how our TV folks, Bob and the TV folks have been able to put the drawings up on the screen so everyone can see them rather up on a poster board on an easel. So that's a big help, and maybe we're doing TSAs or public service announcements for the different committees. Maybe we need to do one to walk through what we're trying to do here.
I think that's right. Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment before we move on? Great. Well, thank you for your presentation. Chiefs, thank you for your presence tonight. Deputy Chief, Mr. Sharples.
Thank you for your time. Those great questions. I like that.
Thank you.
Renee, Amy, thank you.